Hello and welcome to another webinar from the Accountants Mastermind. My name is Mark and I'm here today with James from Hammock. James is going to be talking to you about how you can save hundreds of hours before January as you prepare your tax returns for your landlord clients, and also some information about their latest updates. Say hello, James.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, and let's get started. Good morning, James. How are you?
I'm good. Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm really looking forward to hearing about Hammock's changes and also where it is you see yourselves at the moment. It's going to be exciting. So, without further ado, please welcome James from Hammock, because you haven't come here to listen to me. So I'll let him get on with his presentation.
Thanks. Cheers, Mark. Yeah, look, good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining. I'm going to be taking you through an introduction to Hammock today, but specifically focusing on a big new change we've made, which it makes it so much easier for you as an accountant to use the software. I'm going to be doing most of this session is going to be me, doing a live demo of the new features. But before I get started, I just wanted to give you a little bit of context, so you kind of understand how we got to what I'm going to be showing you today. So I'm hoping most of you here are familiar with Hammock or aware of us, but if any of you aren't, Hammock is a bookkeeping software, an accounting platform, but specifically for landlords. You can think of it as a Xero for landlords. So typically the way this worked was, your landlords would connect their bank feed, add their properties and tenancies, track their transactions, and it starts to automate a lot of their bookkeeping. It means that you and the landlord can see their figures in real time, get rid of this push for like doing lots of tax returns in January and actually start doing them in April, but also be able to offer better advice and things because you've got access to that data in real time. But Hammock's been going for about 5 years. And when we started, we were only selling directly to landlords. So landlords were our customer, and we spoke to landlords all day and we got their feedback, and everything we built was for landlords. But over time that changed, because so many of our landlords, accountants, would get in touch with us and say, my client, Helen, is using Hammock. It's great, but it would be great if we could have access to Helen's account. And we got so many of those type of messages that we realized there's a really big opportunity here with accountants. So we built out the accountant side of our business and the dashboard. We took it to a few trade shows, and then it kind of just took off like a rocket. And we never really had time to take stock. And at the start of this year, we did that. And we looked at the business and realized that actually so much of our business is now focused to accountants, but we'd never really done a big release that was solely for accountants and actually spoken to you and asked you what you want to make the system better. So we did that. We did that at the start of this year, and the feedback was basically universal, which I think is good in the sense of it really means that we knew what to focus on. And that feedback was that once landlords are using Hammock, they love it, the accountant loves it, everybody saves time. But accountants wanted to have more control over the process, and make it much easier to get landlords set up on day one. Because I think for some landlords, just throwing them into a brand new software and get, with a bank feed and all that can be a bit overwhelming. And so they asked us for a bridging step, something to make that whole process easier. So what we came up with is the practice solution. And that started as a nickname, but it stuck as the name. And the reason we call it the practice solution is for two reasons. One, it puts the power of using Hammock back in your hands, back into the practice's hands. But it also means that you can now get all the landlords in your practice onto Hammock really easily and just have it as that single source of truth for all of your property clients. And the big difference we made is that now you can just create a license for your landlords. The landlord doesn't even need to know about it initially, but also to get the account set up. You can now, instead of just using a bank feed, you can now just upload a document. And by that, I mean either the spreadsheet that your landlords probably send you every year, or even their letting agent statements. And that's really important at this time of year because you are going to be getting those documents sent in at the moment, and your teams are spending valuable time at their busiest time of year analyzing and processing those documents. And instead, you can just upload them into Hammock. The whole process takes about 60 seconds, and then Hammock will spit out the tax return for you. So, whilst this is, in one sense, it's a way to get your landlords on that journey to the full, using Hammock and connecting their bank feed. If you think of the short window we've got now between now and January, this is a huge opportunity for you to save a lot of time at the time when you need it most. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to start talking you through how this works. And I'm going to start here, which is your accountant dashboard. So when you sign up to Hammock, you and all your staff have access to your dashboard. This is where you can add all your landlords and access all of their accounts. And so this is my dashboard here. And in terms of getting started, let's say you're a practice and you've got 20 landlords, various shapes and sizes, and you want to get them onto Hammock. So the first thing you're going to do, well, actually, I should probably say, to reiterate, what you used to have to do is you would have to invite the landlord, and the landlord would then have to, first of all, they have to open your email, which is not always, even that's just not always the easiest thing, but then they have to set up their account. Instead, you now have that power. So all you're going to do is you're going to click here, set up new client, simply add their first name, their last name, their email, and how many properties they manage. It does say it here, but it's important to note that whilst you're putting in the landlord's email address, we do not contact the landlord at this point. That is solely there so that when you're ready to introduce them to their account, you can do, but they will not know at this point. Then it asks you who is going to initially set up the account. And if you're using the practice solution, which I'm sure you will be, you're going to click this first option, and then you're going to hit complete setup. Okay, so that whole form probably takes 30 seconds to fill in. Once you've done that, I'm just going to go into an account I've already created. You're going to land on this page here. And this is a brand new step in Hammock where you can now do a data submission. And you can see at the top, there's 3 things that you can upload. You can either upload our template, which you can download yourself from the templates and visuals. This is really for landlords who haven't sent you anything yet, and you just want to give them an easy template that Hammock can read very quickly. But on top of that, if you've got landlords who already have their own, bespoke spreadsheet, or if you as a firm already give out a template and you get those landlord spreadsheets in, you can upload any landlord spreadsheet, or if your landlords just send you, some PDFs of their of their letting agent statements, you can upload those as well. So, anytime that you and your team currently spend, manually copying out everything from a PDF into a spreadsheet is gone now, right? So you just click here, add files to submission, add the documents that you want to add, tick the type of documents. Now, if you want to add any notes in here, you can do. I think most of the time you won't need to, but if you do, if you think there's anything that would be useful to know, and then you just tick the T's and C's and hit submit. At that point, your job is done. It will just say Hammock's processing, and you can just go about your day. The other 100 things you've probably got to do that day. What's happening in the background is your documents will join a long queue of other documents that are being sent in all day, every day from accountants using Hammock. And when your documents get to the front of that queue, we run them through our system, and it picks out all the relevant information. Now, our system has been trained on hundreds of different types of spreadsheets and agent statements. It picks out all the relevant information, anything it's unsure of or anything that gets flagged up. There is also a human team who just makes sure that everything looks okay. And then once that account is fixed, set up and ready, you get a notification, and you can go in, review the account, review the numbers, and take the numbers you need for the tax return. It's a very, very simple system. I spoke to an accountant just last week who told me that they've adopted this in a big way for their landlords, and they're saving up to 40 hours a week. So it's really big time savings. So what I want to do is
James, sorry, really quickly. So that for me, the onboarding part of it is obviously a lot slicker than some of the other sort of software that you have to customers will be onboarding. What sort of, you mentioned about it goes into a queue. Is there an average time scale of when that's processed? How long does it take?
Yeah, so we have a standard SLA of 5 days, but right now it's same day.
Okay.
It's just, we know, but when we get to January, things are going to get a lot busier. But yeah, right now it tends to be same day or 24 hours.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Obviously one thing I mentioned about the Hammock template, and I will cover that again shortly. If you do use the Hammock template, you do get bumped to the front of the queue. So that's just another incentive for you to get that in the hands of your clients now, if you know they haven't already produced something or given you something. So what I'd like to do is show you what I've uploaded for Olivia Brown, and then show you what that account looks like afterwards. So I'm just going to share a different tab here. Okay, so this is a spreadsheet. Now, these figures are obviously demo figures, but this is actually was taken from one of, say many real landlord spreadsheets that we use to train the system. And you can see this one is quite typical. They've got two properties, it's got two tabs. You can see they've got their rent, expenses, mortgage payments. Now, you can notice with these rent payments, even though they've put the net amount, they've actually put up here that it's clearly they're using a letting agent, and it's got the main rent and the fees that will get picked up in Hammock. And then we've got another tab here for a different property, and you can see in this one, one thing to note is that there was clearly a rent change where it was 750 and then it went to 800. Again, Hammock will pick that up. The one thing, because I get asked a lot of questions of like, what type of spreadsheets can it handle? Like, honestly, it can handle pretty much everything. But the one thing it does need to have on here is the property addresses. So you can see there's an address on this tab, an address on this tab. If you've got a landlord spreadsheet and you look at it and the addresses aren't on there, it will make life a lot easier if you add that before you upload it. But anyway, this is one example, right? So I'm just going to go back to my main dashboard, and I'm going to show you what Hammock does with that data. So I say I would have spent 60 seconds uploading that, carried on with my day, and then suddenly I get a notification letting me know that Olivia's account is set up. And you also know that because when it's processing, it says processing, and when it's set up, it says set up. Now, all I'm going to do here is I'm going to click and I'm going to explore the account. And those of you who've seen Hammock before, there's nothing different about the platform. It functions in exactly the same way. You get all the same benefits for your landlords, except right now the data has only come from you. And I say at this point, the landlord probably doesn't even know they have an account. So this is the overview screen, or this is something that your landlords will use more once they get access to the account. But where you're probably first going to come is the transaction page. This is where traditionally your landlord would have connected their bank account, but you can see this is not a bank account. This is an import, and it's called an accountant upload. After this, the landlord can and hopefully will connect their bank feed and use it going forward. But for now, we've got all the data coming through from the bank feed, and you can see everything has been pulled through. Everything in black is basically what appeared on the source document, the agent statement or the spreadsheet. The green is how Hammock has categorized that transaction. And then you can see which property or tenant it's linked to over here. Now, the first thing you are going to want to do once you've done an upload is search to see if there was any transactions that Hammock couldn't or didn't categorize. Now, there'll often be none, but there may be a few. And in this example, if I filter here, so I should have, I'm just going to go back and make that a bit clearer. We've got these filters, and there's one called transaction type. And if I filter on untracked, you can see it will show you anything that hasn't been categorized. And in this case, this one hasn't been categorized because of the size of it, because there's certain transactions that we might not know, are they really a repair or are they a capital expense? So things like this will get left on purpose so that you can actually make that decision, maybe speak to the client, get a bit more information. But there may also be the odd transaction where just from, it couldn't recognize any of the keywords, and even the human who looked at any flags couldn't work out what it was either. So there may be one or two that you do yourself. If you do think that this really is a repair or something, you can just come in here and you just categorize it yourself. So you might say, okay, that's maintenance. And that's general maintenance for 85 Green Lane, right? And hit save. So you can do what you like. If on the other hand, if you think that was a capital expense, then of course you can capitalize it as capital expenditure as well, and then it won't feed the tax return. But anyway, once you're happy that that everything that you want to be categorized is categorized, you can do a bit more of a review of the account. Now, your landlords, when they log in, the great thing is that they actually going to see their profit and loss per property. We even pull an image in from Google Street View so they can see their house. It's always a really nice experience when they first log in. And they'll never have had an accountant share their financial data in this way before, where they log in, there's a picture of the house, you can see their profit. We even track the arrears. So I don't actually have any in this case, but if I did, I could just head over to the tenancies page, because we track each tenant history as well. Now, if you remember, on 85 Green Lane, there was a rent change. And if we go into 85 Green Lane, we're going to scroll down. Now, this is the rent table. You'll notice that from April 23 onwards, the rent due automatically goes to zero. That's just because we don't have any information from that point onwards, because this is just for 22, 23, and we don't want you to have missing payments and arrears. But if we go back to page 2, you can see that it picked up the first payment in April. It could see that it was monthly. It also could see that the rent due was 750 and then changed to 800. So all of this happens automatically. But most importantly, where you guys are really going to want to head to, because this is really what you need out of Hammock for the next couple of months, is the tax area. Now I can pop into here, and I'm going to look at Olivia's tax return for 22, 23 and view details. And as you can see here, you've got the summary box at the top, which just gives you the headline figures. But most importantly, these are the individual boxes that you need to file on Olivia's tax return. Underneath that, you have all the transactions which make up these totals. And this is where you will spend a little bit of time reviewing. Like, I'm not expecting you to just upload it, take these figures without even looking at them. What we're trying to do here is just, you don't have to do any of the boring processing work. You can just spend your time on doing a quick review. And really where you're probably going to focus your efforts is things like repairs and maintenance, because that's where I think things can sometimes come up. But you can go in here and kind of go through and make sure, does this all seem make sense? Does it all are these all allowable expenses? If you also would like a copy of this for your own records, you can download this entire page. So the summary, subtotals, and all the transactions just here as a CSV file. And so really what we're trying to do here for the next 2.5 months is, as your landlords send in their figures, or even some of the landlords who have already sent in their figures, because if you want to get them on this journey, is you just provision the license, upload the document, let Hammock do all that work for you. You can then take the figures, file the tax return. Come maybe February, that's when the next task will be to, right, now we invite the landlord. And by the way, there's nothing stopping you doing it immediately either, because once your landlords see this account and it's something where they don't have to set it up themselves, you can just show it to them. They can immediately see the value. There's lots of other features that are just for them, and then they can connect their bank feed and actually use it in real time, where Hammock is actually auto tracking from the bank feed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my dashboard, and I'm going to show you another landlord who has kind of made that transition and is now using it fully. So I'm going to go and look at Mike's account. So Mike has connected their bank feed, because if I go to the transactions screen, you'll see I've got it's a Hammock account, but they've got a bank account connected. And you can see this goes all the way up to today, because every day Hammock pulls in new transactions. You'll also notice that typically with a personal bank, a self-assessment landlord, they'll typically use a personal bank account. So I've got stuff in here like Tesco and Amazon Prime, which you might not ever categorize, but anything that is related to the property is categorized. And it's really easy to track things in bulk. And Hammock then learns all of your regular transactions. So, for example, Mike has a tenant called Tom, and Tom puts his name in the payment reference. So I can just search for the keyword Tom. It will search Tom's entire bank feed and bring up these rent payments. And you can see these go back to May 2022. Now I can just click on any of these. Doesn't actually matter which one. And I would just say, right, that's my rental income for 25 New Church Road and my tenant Tom. Save. And you can see that one transaction is now categorized, but we want to do all the others as well. So to do that really quickly, I can just use this feature here called search and track, select all, and update. And so not only have I, in seconds just categorized all of Tom's rent historically, but now Hammock knows what Tom's rent looks like. So next month, it's just going to track itself. and the same with his mortgage, and the same with his insurance. And it's probably worth saying I'm a landlord myself. I only have one rental property, but all my transactions auto track because I just have, my rent, my mortgage, my insurance. Maybe 2 or 3 times a year, I'll have some additional expenses, which I just do manually in the mobile app. But other than that, my accountant just has access. Come April, he's filing my tax return on the 6th, or he's got my figures on the 6th of April. And that's where we want to get you to. We want to help you do your first tax return now and your next tax return in April. Because on top of the things I've kind of already showed you, there's other benefits once the landlord takes ownership as well. So if I jump over to the overview screen, for example, as a landlord, I can now see my profit and loss throughout the year. You'll probably all know from having conversations with your clients that it's probably hard. It's harder right now than ever to actually be profitable as a landlord with everything, with interest rates, with Section 24, etc. It's never been more important to know actually if you're making money and whether something is a good investment anymore, and whether you're going to have cash flow issues. So being able to see this stuff in real time rather than speaking to your accountant 9 months after the tax year's ended, makes a huge difference. But I can also get live property valuations through Hammock. All I need to do, I just come in here. You can see actually when I've added this property myself, I've put in what I think the valuation is. But I can get a new estimate by just clicking here, and I just tell the system that this is a 3-bed terrace house, and that will update the valuation. And actually, you can see, and this is a bit of a trend, unfortunately, at the moment, that the valuation is actually a bit lower than I thought it was, gone down by 8,000. But I can save that. I can now see what my portfolio is worth, what my loan to value is. Obviously, for you as the accountant, this is a really nice way of you being able to know which of your landlords you should be speaking to about estate planning, inheritance tax, capital gains tax, things like that. I can also see my arrears balances. I can see my occupancy rate. I can see what upcoming payments I've got. I can compare the rental yields and actually try and start deciding, when you can get 5% on a risk-free government bond, does it make sense to be earning 2.9% when I've got to deal with tenants and repairs? And, and these are conversations you can now have with your clients because you've got the data at your fingertips. Your clients can also upload all their important documents. So, and landlords have a million things to remember these days, sadly, but you can upload your gas, your mortgage, your insurance, your inventory, your tenancy agreements, everything in here. So you've got everything in one place, but most importantly, set the expiry date and Hammock will start sending you reminders. And actually, you can see I haven't updated my demo account in a while because I've actually got one that has expired. But if this was my real account, I would have received 5 reminders starting at 90 days before, to hopefully mean that I never end up in that situation. But I say, hopefully you can sort of see that, the journey you want to take your landlords on is one where they're not scrambling around in December trying to throw together a spreadsheet, that they're on top of this stuff. They know what's happening with their properties, whether they've got 1 or whether they've got 20. And by using Hammock and using the practice solution to get the account set up, it means you start saving time immediately. It makes it much easier for you to get your landlords signed up to using it, connecting the bank feed and actually taking ownership of the account themselves. And means that you'll be filing your next tax returns in spring, not in Christmas. So I think that's probably a good time for me to pause, because I've been talking at you for a little while. But yeah, I'd love to hear if anyone's got any questions, and we can kind of go through some stuff.
Thank you, James. I have a question on this because from my perspective, the onboarding seemed incredibly fast and easy. So obviously, this is the time of year that people struggle with time and everything else. Is this a good time to be implementing Hammock?
Absolutely. I mean, we're onboarding more accountants now than we have at any time this year because now is the time that you want to buy your time back. This is a system like for the initial part, you don't really need any training. Well, I've just given you the training. You click this button, you fill in some details, you upload a document. That is it. This is not something that requires your team to sit and have a 3-hour training session. This is where they have to watch a 2-minute video. to learn how to use it. And at the moment, as your landlords are sending in data, on average, and I say on average, accountants tell us they spend between 1 and 4 hours processing spreadsheets and letting agent statements. You can literally do it in 90 seconds. And if you times that time saving by how many landlords you've still got to do between now and January, you could potentially get a week's worth, one employee, an entire week back between now and January. And just think what you could do with that. Just think what if that means that you're not having to work overtime or pay overtime. You're not having to, work on the, Christmas Eve or, between Christmas and New Year. It's, this time at this time of year is so important. So I cannot stress enough how, this is exactly the time. If you're busy, the busier you are, the more you need this.
Thank you. So for me to make savings, how many landlord clients would I need to have in order to have it? And what sort of size portfolio? Is it any size or?
Yeah, any size at all. The way you want to kind of think of this is, I think every accountant deals with landlords in the same way, unless they're already using Hammock. And none of them are happy with that way, which is you spend all year chasing, you finally get the data, it all comes in at the worst possible time. And you want to move your clients to where you can actually do things in real time, where your clients know what's happening with their figures, where you can give proper advice. And that's the same whether you got one property or 100 properties, honestly. Now, Hammock pricing does increase based on different bands of how many properties. So it's a cheaper software if you've got 1 to 3 properties, for example, than if you've got 20 properties. But every landlord, you can save time on every landlord. And I guess I was going to talk a bit about this at the end, because we do have a special offer specifically for Accountant Mastermind. But the thing is, when we released the practice solution, and at first we went and told our existing clients about it, but obviously we're also telling prospective clients as well. And the feedback we got was like, yeah, that sounds awesome, but it sounds too good to be true. Like, we don't believe it can do that. So actually what we're doing is we're going to let everyone who's attending this or watching this online try it for free. You can literally get a dashboard, add your first landlord, upload the documents, and just see it for yourself. If you don't think that, if you think this sounds too good to be true, then try it. And this can be a brand new landlord, by the way. So if you've got one that landed in your inbox this morning, but actually what you might find easier or better for you is actually just pick one you've already processed over the last couple of months. That way, when you look at the results in Hammock, you can compare them to what you produced yourself and make sure that you've got that confidence in the system. Also, you will know how long it took you to produce that yourself. So if you spent 2 hours on that and you uploaded it in Hammock in 90 seconds, you know exactly how much time you saved. So I think a lot of accountants tend to do that. But if you want to do it with a new one, you can do. But that you can upload that first one and try it, test it for free.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you. And Michelle has just put the link in there. So if anybody is doing it, maybe they can upload it while we move on to the next bit. But a couple of other questions I've got for you is David asked, can Hammock deal with landlord statements that are emailed to clients and accessible through a link in the body of the email?
So there needs to be a document that you upload. So it would need to be a PDF document. If you just uploaded an email with a link, that wouldn't work. So what you would need to do is either you or the landlord download those PDFs.
Yes.
And them. You can upload like an annual statement, or you can upload 12 monthly statements all in one go. You just upload whatever you've got, and in it goes.
Okay, well, David is on the call. So if that's not quite what you're asking, then obviously let us know. Mark asked, which I think is a really useful question, and I know you've covered some of it, but there might be some other stuff that comes up for you, is why should we use Hammock rather than Xero? And I would say other than what you've explained so far.
Yeah, so I think I guess the main reason is because it's completely tailored. My experience with landlords who use Xero is that they don't like it, really. Well, at least they don't see it as a software for them. They see it as a software for their accountant. Hammock is the opposite. This is built for them. And I say, I've taken you through some of the additional features. So the rental yields, the valuations, etc. There's also, I'll show you one other cool feature, which is actually specifically for landlords who use a letting agent. And this is, I mean, this is a feature for landlords, but it's also for accountants as well. You'll all know that the issue when it comes to bank feeds and payments from letting agents is that it's not the gross rent that hits the bank account, it's the net rent. So when you add a tenancy in Hammock, Hammock will actually ask you straight away, do you use an agent or not? And if I go to my tenancies page, I've got a couple of tenants here who don't use an agent, but Mary is one where I do, right? And if I go into Mary's tenancy, you'll see I've got Mary here. Mary pays 1,200 a month. But then I've also got my letting agent and they take their fee, which in this case is 10%. So Hammock already knows that. And when we look at Mary's rent table, you can see everything paid up until October and November. And I always leave these two transactions untracked, just so I can show in case this question comes up around letting agent fees. So I haven't tracked October and November. I want to show you how this works in Hammock. And this is certainly something that you wouldn't get in a generic software. So I'm going to go back to the bank feed. Now I'm going to search by date this time. And because I know that the payments come in around the start of the month. So if I go to the 6th of October, we've got this payment from my letting agent, and you can see it's for £1,080. So this is just a normal month where nothing else has happened other than rent minus letting agent fees. And let's imagine I'm setting this up for the first time. I'm just going to click on that transaction, and I'm going to say, right, that's my rental income for 141 Corn Street, my tenant Mary, save. Because Hammock knows I use an agent, it doesn't track that as 1080 rent. It tracks that as, right, it automatically splits that into 1,200 of rent and 120 of letting agent fees. And again, it learns that. So in any other month going forward where my agent pays me 1,080, it will auto track, it will auto split and gross it up. Not only that, occasionally, let's say we jump forward to November, and I've got this payment in November, but this time it's only £867. And let's say there's been some repairs. Okay. So this actually is one of the few transactions which won't track automatically, because Hammock doesn't know, has the tenant underpaid or was there an expense? But all I need to do, just click on the transaction. Right, that's rental income, 141 Corn Street, and Hammock will just tell me, look, this rent is less than expected. Would you like to create an expense for the difference? So I just say, yes, I would. And then I can just categorize that as anything. I say, usually it's maintenance and usually it's repairs, but you can see there's all sorts of categories. Click save. And Hammock still knows I got my full rent, still knows I paid my letting agent fees, and now it knows I've paid my repairs as well. So that auto grossing up is just another reason why having something tailored for landlords is so helpful. You can also add notes to this. You can also add receipts and invoices, and again, I think I said this earlier, but you can access everything from the mobile app as well. I guess the final point on that, and I would never actually use price as a reason to choose a software. I would always pick the software that is best suited, but it'd probably be silly of me not to mention that Hammock is also a more cost-effective solution than Xero.
There we go. Brilliant. Thank you for that. And Libby asked, which I think you kind of just covered, but Libby said, I'm already using Hammock for one client. What's your top tip for getting the best out of your software?
Yes, well, my top tip I think this is for any software. I think you really need to get everyone in your business involved. If you're a sole practitioner, then obviously you need to be fully involved. But if you've got other team members, you need to make sure that everybody has a login to start with. Everyone has access. And then the best way to do this is you just start adding your landlords. You want Hammock to be the central place. So if you or anyone in your team needs anything to know or any information about their landlords, they know they come into Hammock. And that's why the practice solution makes such a difference, because you can literally now just set up all your landlords, upload their spreadsheet or letting agent statements, stick it straight into Hammock, get the account set up. At that point, that's when you then introduce it to the landlords, and you can do this one at a time. You can do this en masse and show them their account. Show them, look, hey, look, this is where you see all your P&L by property. This is where you see this. This is where you can add your documents. This is where you can get your valuations. Once you show them that, they will be hooked. And that's when you go, okay, cool. Like if you want, you can continue using a spreadsheet or fill in the Hammock template, which by the way, I've just realized I haven't shown yet, which I will do. Or go and connect your bank feed. And with the firms we tested it on this summer, more than 70% of landlords went on to connect their bank feed once they had seen Hammock and seen the value. And that's how you then move from using Hammock to help you once a year to using Hammock to help you and your landlords start filing tax returns when you want to file them, which is, the spring. So yeah, I hope that was helpful, Libby.
No, I think it's really useful, and it's making that making that distinction between you using it like people do with Zero, and then the customers using it for added benefit. And I think that's always important. Whereas I think when you, like you say, when you've mentioned it before, it's been kind of encouraging the landlord to use it, and then you have the back end access to it. And I think it's a really good switch around. But
yeah, well, we had a lot of accountants who actually just want to use it as an internal system. So it gives you that full flexibility. If you want to just use it yourself, like it's not a way I would recommend it, because I think there's so much value to showing it to your landlords. But we do have some firms who literally just, their landlords don't even know they have an account. They just use it internally, save time, get all get everything they need. I think that's a shame, but it means if that is the way you want to operate, then you absolutely can now.
Excellent. And is there any particular areas that perhaps when you're not just selling the benefits, but giving the benefits to the customer, because obviously there needs to be a chargeback, right? It's software that's being used in order to look after the customer. Is there anything that you would particularly say that is a benefit to them, so that there can be an additional fee for looking after this particular type of customer?
Yeah, so with fees, it's an interesting one. So, like typically, most accountants don't pass on the cost for Hammock. They might do for the larger landlords when the subscription price gets higher, but actually, the time savings you make from Hammock pay for themselves, which is why actually it becomes then much easier to get adoption, because you're literally just giving them something that's improving their service. And the funny thing is, when you, as an accountant, when you invite a landlord to Hammock and they see the features and they might love the valuations, or they might love the document reminders, or they might love XYZ. They never give Hammock any credit for this. They give the accountant. They see that as like a new service that you are giving them as the accountant, which I guess is it's really good, because then that is that's actually what we want, because then we have happier customers, which is and then they put more landlords on and everything else. So, but yeah, there's everything that's in Hammock, your clients will see as an additional service that you have provided, and that has got to be a good thing.
Yeah, but just to explain it from my perspective, I'm looking at it and going, well, you can actually have a quarterly, 6 monthly review with it, and actually have the right figures, as opposed to it being something else. And that for me is almost an additional service that you would need to charge the customer for, because like anything, a customer can look at Zero and they can understand a few of the elements of it, but they don't understand everything. And I think there's an opportunity there to really help landlord customers. I think you said it before, understand that if you're only operating at 2%, it's just, there could be an opportunity to move it.
Absolutely. Like the advisory service is quite a large one. Again, it's one of the key reasons why a lot of accountants don't pass on the cost, is because actually the value they get from the data means they make way more from the advisory side.
Yeah.
Which is, like, let's sit down, let's look at your portfolio, let's work out if these things make sense. One thing, sorry, I know you've probably got other questions, but I just realized I still haven't shown the Hammock template, and I think it would be remiss of me not to. So I'm just very quickly going to show this, which is here. So you can access this from your dashboard. And I say this is really just for those landlords where they haven't got anything ready yet. This will make it much easier to upload into Hammock. It's a very simple template. You've got some instructions down here, although I suspect not many landlords would need them. You've just got two boxes. So you've got one for your properties and one for your transactions. You can see there's a couple of example rows here, but it's just first line of the address, postcode, expected rental amount and frequency. Then over here, you're just going to put your transactions, date, amount, description, and then what property it relates to. If you don't link something to a property, it will just go in as an overall portfolio expense. It will still feed the tax return. It won't feed the profit and loss per property. But yeah, you just get them to fill that in, upload that into Hammock, done. I just want to share that.
Great. No, thank you. I think it is really important to see how easy it is, and obviously you might want to help them, or they might send stuff over. And I guess given the fact that you would prioritize that form, it might be worth the time spent sometimes actually, if you've already got the information, putting it in yourself and then sending that one off as opposed to the others. Brilliant. Okay. So Laura asked, is Hammock suitable for landlords who own their properties in a limited company?
Very good question. Actually, I'm glad this one came up because around the same time that we released the practice solution, we've also released another product, which is an add-on package for Hammock, which is specifically for limited companies. And I say it's an add-on, so it's an additional cost to any existing license, and none of the existing functionality changes. You just get some additional reporting. I'll give you a quick 2-minute spin of this because it doesn't take long. Let's say I've got my client here, Mia Anderson. So Mia Anderson owns her property in a limited company, and I've purchased the limited company add-on. So if I go into Mia's account, you get everything that you normally get in Hammock, but on top of that, well, on a normal Hammock license, this page would just be called transactions. Once you get the add-on, it's called bookkeeping. And then you still have the transaction page in here, which is, and really for limited companies, you probably do want the bank feed to make sure you've got all the transactions. But now you've also got this additional section called journals and reports. And if we go into here, now Mia's only got one limited company, so it pulls in automatically. It's called Property ABC, and tax year starts on the 1st of July. But you now get, in addition to everything else, you get your profit and loss report, you get your balance sheet. I won't spend too much time on these. You all know what these look like. You get your ETB with all your account codes, balances. You've got the general ledger with all the postings, because with the limited company add-on, Hammock really becomes like a full double entry accounting system. So you've got all your debits and credits. You also get a bank reconciliation, so you can actually see how many transactions are still left to reconcile. I can click on that. It will just open a new tab into the transaction screen and show me what I've still got to categorize. And I can lock down the year. So once I'm happy with the figures, I can lock it down here. The only other thing, I guess, when you first start, you will have an additional button up here for your opening balances. I've already added those for me already, but the opening balances screen looks the same pretty much as the new journals anyway. So you just come in here. Again, I'm sure you're all very familiar with this sort of setup. You just add as many account lines as you need, pick your account codes, debits, credits, and save. But this just means if you do have landlords who aren't just self-assessment, who are limited company, then you now have all the reporting that you need.
Great, thank you. I think that's me done for the questions, James.
Okay, well, I guess the only final thing, I probably haven't really talked about pricing, so I should probably finish by talking about that. I say everyone can try Hammock for free, but after that, if you tell me you want to stick 17 landlords on between now and January, these are the prices. And I do normally ask people to guess the pricing at this stage because they always guess more than it is. I don't know why that always comes up. Sorry. But yeah, hopefully you can see this. These are the pricing, and it is based on the number of properties that your landlords manage. I suspect for most of you, 90% of your clients fall into that 1 to 3 bracket. So it's just £3.99 a month plus VAT. If anyone's in the 4 to 10 bracket, £9.99. 11 to 20, £15.99. If you do have any 20 plus, it's priced per property. Although again, I suspect not many of you have that. Probably just worth mentioning that limited company add-on package I just mentioned is just an additional £10 on top of any license. So if they've got 1 to 3 properties, it would and a limited company, £13.99. And that's important, probably important. If you've got any clients who have like a different SPV for each property, it's still just one £10 add-on. So if you had 3 properties in 3 limited companies, it'd still just be £13.99. And it's just a monthly rolling contract, because we know you're going to love Hammock. We don't tie you into any contract. You sign up today. If you want to leave tomorrow, you leave tomorrow. We're just, very confident that won't be the case.
Great, thank you. So to confirm that that would be per landlord customer that you have.
So per license, but one license could be like you might have a husband and wife who own property together, you can manage both of those within one license. You just change the ownership in that account to 50-50, and it will give you a different tax return for each partner. Could split it out for 5 family members. So it's really just for one license of properties.
Yeah. So if I have, for example, if I've had five customers that have properties, depending on how many properties they have each, I would need 5 lots of whatever that is, and then go from there.
So you might have like 4 basic and 1 standard. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Thank you. I just want to give anybody else the opportunity to ask any questions, because we've got about 15 minutes left. So I don't know if there's anything else, James, that you want to add on. There was one other question, but I was going to see if the gentleman was on the call, because it just says about effective property management, but there's no context. So I was just struggling a bit with what the question might mean.
Well, I guess what I would just close on, and my finishing thought is, if you've seen anything today that looks interesting to you, and I hope you have, because I spend my whole life talking to accountants about the way they work with landlords, and I know, even without speaking to you guys, I know that you don't like the way you deal with them now, and I just cannot tell you, of all the things we've ever released in 5 years, we always get great feedback, but the feedback for the practice solution has been like completely off the charts. Like the time savings are real. Like what I'm telling, and this is why I say to you, like, if you're even curious, just try it for free once, and I promise you it's a game changer. So if I cannot stress enough, sign up. It takes 5 minutes to sign up for a dashboard, upload one landlord, and see what you think. I think, Mark, I also gave you a link for a meeting.
Yes.
So I also appreciate some of you might have some specific questions about you and and how you price it for certain landlords and things like that. So they're going to post a link in the chat. If you want to book 30 minutes with me over Zoom, where we can go through anything. Again, ideally, what we'd really do in that session as well is get you booked it, get you to sign up and try it. If you sign up and upload one ahead of that meeting, then we can actually spend that meeting actually reviewing the account together, and I can show you, how everything's fed through, where all the figures go. I say we've had nothing but like overwhelming happy feedback on this. So I know you're all going to love it as well. Take the plunge, give it, if you haven't got 15 minutes to try this, just to potentially save 50 hours between now and January, then I guess there's not much more I can say.
And I appreciate that, James, because we all think we are very busy, and sometimes I believe that we need to take a step back in order to take 2 steps forward. And I think what you've just demonstrated today is proof of that, in the fact that you can potentially save lots of time by just stopping and looking around and saying, right, what can I do differently? And as I say, from what you've explained, that fits that bill perfectly. So Michelle has added that link into the chat. So if you want to book a call with James, that would be great. And my own advice would be exactly what James said: get it set up first, and then if there's any questions, have that conversation with him, because that's a half an hour you could be spending doing other stuff if it based on the fact that it is that simple to set up. So yes, and Michelle's just put that at the bottom of the chat box now. So get your account set up. Thank you very much for your time, James, and look forward to speaking to you soon.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thanks everybody. Have a lovely day.
And the good news is, James, is we're finished in 12 minutes early, so that gives everybody that booked the hour for this 12 minutes to get on and get the account set up. So
it takes half that time. So yeah, you can take that time, get a coffee, and you've still finished at 1:30.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for your time.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, James. Thanks. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching our webinar with James from Hammock. It was great to see the latest changes in their software that helps you, the accountant, save time and onboard your landlord customers quicker. So if you like what you saw, please like and comment on this recording. And if you want to see more, please subscribe to our channel now to ensure that we help inspire, challenge and support you to be the best you want to be. Somewhere on the screen below, you will be seeing some recordings that we suggest you watch next to help be the best accounting practice you can.